Hi, my name is Josh Winscott. I will be presenting my grant proposal study that examines the impact that the portfolio diet and twice-weekly fasting could have on an adult obese population. The study will answer the research question: within an obese population, how does twice-weekly fasting and the portfolio diet impact body composition and atherosclerotic cardiovascular risk biomarkers? The world around us cultivates unhealthy overeating that ultimately leads to an ever-growing obesity crisis. Here are some facts on the slide to further illustrate this crisis. Just from analyzing this, we see that obesity is harmful to our society, puts a strain on our healthcare system, and is life-threatening to the individual. Obesity is a problem, but what's the solution? Thankfully, obesity can be solved through lifestyle changes, and the portfolio diet, PD, is a plausible diet treatment option. This dietary pattern has been defined in previous research as consuming plant sterols, leafy greens, nuts, viscous soluble fibers, and soy or plant protein. The table on the slide shows how this diet is specifically characterized in the literature. The study will also use these same PD guidelines in the protocol. PD was originally designed to lower low-density lipoprotein cholesterol, also known as bad cholesterol or LDL-C, and decrease the chances of an atherosclerotic cardiovascular event or ASCVE. In a 2005 randomized clinical trial, the diet was directly compared against a cholesterol-lowering prescription drug known as lovastatin. PD had comparable LDL-C serum level reductions to lovastatin, showing that it is a practical preventative approach. However, the study had limitations due to only having non-obese participants, and the 4-week-long trial duration isn't long enough to assess proper long-term ASCVE prevention. A 2018 systematic review and meta-analysis of 7 clinical trials found reductions in key atherosclerotic cardiovascular risk biomarkers. The results are seen on the slide. Research gaps still exist, however, because the study showed serious imprecision and only moderate certainty ratings for how it impacts good cholesterol, blood pressure, inflammatory biomarkers, and 10-year ASCVE risk. Finally, a 2020 systematic review study compared PD with 13 other popular diets, and PD was the most successful at lowering LDL-C. However, the authors insisted that there needed to be more research to confirm the results' certainty, which this study hoped to do. Another lifestyle shift that has improved the health of the obese is intermittent fasting. In 2022, a 12-week randomized control trial examined the impact of fasting 2 consecutive days a week on obese and overweight participants with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. The fasting group had statistically significant reductions in body composition factors, inflammatory biomarkers, and triglyceride reductions. Another randomized control trial in 2022 sought to investigate whether intermittent fasting for 1 day per week was better than 2 days per week. Compared to the 1-day fasting group, the 2-day fasting group had an almost 2% larger weight reduction and 4% larger LDL-C reduction. Both groups in the study showed significant blood pressure reductions too. Due to the high body weight and LDL-C reduction, we'll use 2 days of fasting in the study. Concerning both studies, more research needs to be done to confirm fasting's cholesterol effects, increase the trial's duration, and increase the number of participants. Once again, the study will examine how twice-weekly fasting, or TWF, and PD can work together to improve the health of obese adults. Over 3 months, the parallel study will test how TWF and PD will impact body composition factors, 10-year ASCVE risk percentage, and ACDRBs. The study will start with recruiting participants through social media posts, newspapers, emails, outpatient clinics, and hospitals. Eligible participants are non-smoking male and female adults with a BMI over 30 and a body fat percentage of at least 30%. The study will aim to recruit at least 70 participants. After recruitment, participants will sign written consent and receive all experimental disclosures. Then the experiment will utilize block randomization to ensure that both groups have an equal number of males and females similar cardiovascular history, diabetic history, lipid profiles, and body composition factors. The control group will not fast, consume their usual diet, and receive dietary intervention. The experimental group will follow PD, TWF, and receive the dietary intervention. During fasting days, participants will consume 25% of their daily recommended calories and macronutrients in a 2-hour span. The participants in this group will get to choose what days they fast and when their eating windows are. They will use the same PD guidelines previously stated. When the groups are established, the participants will be assigned to their registered dietitians and have an in-person introductory visit. In the introductory visit, RDs will help educate participants on their diets, how to record food, and answer any other questions. Additional pamphlets about diets, cooking methods, and diet menus will also be given. Lastly, at this visit, fasting blood test and body composition measurements will establish a baseline. After the introductory visit, the trial will begin. During the trial, the control group must chart their food at least 4 days a week. They will also use Microsoft Teams to have online RD meetings. The meetings will occur in the experiment's 2nd, 5th, and 9th weeks. The experimental group will have a similar routine dietary intervention to the control, but they will need to chart their food intake on both fasting days. When the trial is done, the participants will report to the lab for final fasting blood tests and body composition measurements. Once final measurements are made, the study will proceed with statistical analysis. An independent samples t-test will examine the statistical difference between the control and experimental groups. This analysis will compare the final mean outcome variables to obtain a p-value. The study will also use dependent samples t-test to examine the difference between the baseline and final measurements after 3 months. This test will be done on both groups, but comparisons will only be made within each group. The p-value for statistical significance for both tests will be 0.5. All right, so the statistical analysis portion concludes the study. And once again, to reiterate, the hope for the results is that they examine how twice weekly intermittent fasting and the portfolio diet can reduce body composition factors and atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease risk biomarkers in adult obese population. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed.